love the moments leading up to pressing the record button. And I know I've gotten kind of in the habit of saying this. From the last time I spoke to now, so many moments have passed. Thousands of little thoughts, experiences, interactions, little breakthroughs, little moments of pain, moments of joy. But mostly from then to now, it's become a daily practice of being a witness to my own experience, being a witness to the automatic processes of my body and the automatic processes of my mind, just the automatic pulses, the automatic reactions, the way that my body has learned to respond and act or react in the context of this life that I have lived and in the particular moment I found myself in or I find myself in. So I make a bit of a game, I make a bit of a practice of noticing and observing the automatic responses of my body and my mind, whether it be pain or sadness or anger or fear or some conviction about something. And the goal is to notice the automatic responses of the body and mind. And in particular, to notice those ones that are driven by fear or anger. And really, I would just say fear, because I think anger comes from a place of injury. Anger is designed to keep us safe. Whenever you find yourself angry, you're lashing out. What you're doing is you're keeping people away. You're keeping people at a distance. Anger is a form of posturing. But really it's saying, get away from me. I'm hurt. I'm hurt on the inside. I don't feel right. Now, sometimes anger is a line has been crossed. A boundary has been crossed. A spoken or unspoken rule or agreement has been broken. And our natural response is anger. Anger is designed to correct in that case. Think of it in a tribal sense. Expressing anger in the context of small social groups, which is how we used to be as human beings, would presumably lead to some sort of change or correction in behavior. Unfortunately or fortunately, I mean, this is a particular pathway maybe we'll go down. I don't know. We'll see where my brain goes. But we've completely pathologized the experience or the expression of anger in our culture, in our society. It's always just this bad thing, as opposed to, no, anger serves a social purpose. Anger serves a purpose of communication. Anger says, I have been injured and or some boundary or line or agreement has been crossed or broken. And typically by the time, especially reasonably healthy people express anger, it means they have been assaulted over and over and over and over and over again, and they have tried and tried and tried to do it the right way, to say, hey, would you please not do that? Would you please not speak this way? Would you please not lie to me? Would you please not be an asshole? Hey, could you just not do that? Could you chill out? You know, normal healthy people tend to set a lot of boundaries and tend to communicate in all sorts of different ways, like, hey, please don't do that. I don't like that. So when anger comes out, anger typically is like a roar that comes from a place of, I have been injured or something has been wrong. It's all about trying to protect and correct. But that doesn't mean it's always a correct response. It doesn't mean it's a correct behavior. It doesn't mean that anger, the anger expression in and of itself, is the truth. The anger in and of itself is actually, in my opinion, a form of wisdom. It's a form of data. All emotion is a form of data automatically expressed through the body. It's telling you how you perceive the present moment, either in your internal world of the mind or the external world. If you can learn circling back to where I started, if you can learn to listen to the body and the mind, and we could just say the body, because in practice, the way that I tend to go about it is to notice the sensations of the body and to notice even the sensations of the mind that become what we call thoughts. They become thoughts, they become ideas and beliefs and rules and rituals and groups, and pretty soon I believe this and you believe that, so you're an asshole and I'm right, and now you're on that side and I'm on this side. Goes back to that tribalism as well. But in practice, it's okay. I notice there's sensations in my body. A good way to practice that the first time, a good way to do that is to close your eyes. Notice the sensation of breathing. And then to focus your attention on your hands. And to release the concept of your hands. In other words, your mind creates a concept or an image of your hands as you imagine your hands. That's not really your hands. That's just an imagined thing in your mind. So close your eyes and notice the sensation of your hands. If you notice the sensation, you can actually kind of feel the pulses. You feel the energy. You feel the sensation of your hands. And if you can notice the pure sensation of your hands, the reason why I choose the hands, and I've learned this from other people, feeling sensations in the hands is quite neutral. I'm not going to feel the sensation of my hands in this moment and automatically respond as if it's anger or fear. I can just feel the pulse. I can feel the circulation. I can feel the sensation of my hands. And I can realize I don't need to attach a label. I can just observe it. And then I can sit and notice the space behind my forehead and notice that's the space I've had lots and lots of thoughts, and I tell stories, and I say I have been hurt or I have been wronged or the world should be this way, and if the world is not a certain way, I'm going to be angry about it. Back to I'm going to be angry because the world is not the way it's supposed to be. So anger is a pure expression. Emotions are a pure expression that tell us how we see the present moment, how we immediately perceive the present moment. And truly through wisdom, through practice, we can learn to listen to and observe those emotions as a source of wisdom rather than something that we automatically act out. I don't believe emotions, I'm going to say that differently because I don't like to say believe. If you can learn to listen to the sensations of the body and the mind without automatically labeling them or without automatically acting them out, what you realize is that your body has been collecting data over the course of your entire life, and that your physical body, including the mind, the physical body, including the mind, is capable of learning automatically from experience. You were born that way. And your body has been programmed by your experiences on this planet. Your body has been programmed by the way you were treated by your parents, by the way you were treated by your community, by the way you perceived that treatment, by the way you had to learn to respond to how your environment treated you to keep yourself safe. So as children, we twist our perception of reality. We twist our perception of the physical sensations and our own thoughts and ideas, about what, burping here, about what we're perceiving. We twist reality to keep ourselves safe, and then we carry those adaptations into adulthood and we act them out in our adult relationships. It's just the automatic programming of the body. We are all programmed by experience. We're all calibrated by experience. The settings in our body are put into place by experience and how we selectively attend to that experience, how we perceive it, and how we cross-reference our current present moment with our perception of how we think the world should be based upon prior experience. What's super fascinating about how this beautiful thing that we're living in works is it just purely learns automatically from experience, and it can act on autopilot if you don't pay attention to it. So there's this thing called the limbic brain. It's a part of your brain that's really this, we think of it as kind of the emotional system of the brain. It's really an automatic response system that's designed to look for stuff that will help us and look for stuff that will hurt us. It automatically perceives based upon sensory information coming from the external world and based upon sensory information coming from the internal world. That's the simplest but really a good pragmatic way to think about it. The limbic brain is this automatic emergency response system that's wired into the entire spacesuit we're wearing. And it can cross-reference everything you have ever learned and possibly things that you were born with through genetics. So possibly we are born with information already in us. We don't really know the degree to which we pass on generational information or physical information, but we do. So that limbic brain is designed to sit there and observe the spacesuit you're wearing. It observes the sensations. It observes the way your own mind judges the sensations of your body. It's really amazing. Really hear that. Your limbic brain, which is your automatic response system that makes you feel those things you call fear and anxiety and panic and anger and all the shit that we all deal with, depression. That emergency system is just sitting there observing all the data coming in from the internal world and the external world. And if you are someone that's sitting there living in your thinking mind and you are labeling experiences as negative and bad and wrong and sad and scary, oh, I don't want to go to work today. Oh, I don't want to get out of bed. Oh, I hate that asshole. Man, my boss is an asshole. Man, I don't like my buddy. He's such a dick. Right? We sit there and have conversations with ourselves in our head, but we don't realize that this automatic, beautiful emergency response system is sitting there listening in on our conversations, and it's responding automatically to how we are perceiving the experiences of our life. So if you're perceiving your life from a place of fear, from a place of, oh no, from a place of anticipating bad things, then that's literally how we're programming our emotional brain all the time. Our emotional brain is like, oh, I guess we're in a really bad situation. I guess we're in a really bad environment. Why? Because that really intelligent part of our brain is telling us it's bad. It's labeling it as bad. It's saying everything is shitty and everyone is an asshole and everything's going to fall apart. So I guess that's how we should feel. Oh, feeling that way automatically makes this spacesuit act out in a way that leads people to believe that we are angry, fearful, hurt, whatever. So going back to the beginning, back to the moment, back to the breath, back to observing the sensation, the difference between acting out your anger, acting out your depression, acting out your fear, acting out your injury, acting out the automatic response of that emotional brain and the learned responses of the body, the difference between acting all that out and scaring your family or scaring your friends or saying something foolish from a place of anger or hate, the difference between acting these things out and learning to observe and notice what is happening in the moment and being able to change your response to be more in accordance with what you would choose as opposed to what your emotional brain and your physical body automatically does based on your past experience, most likely what you learned early in your life, whether you like it or not, because that's the foundational programming of the system. So through things like meditation, through just sitting there and noticing your breath, through anything you could do, I just had an image of ice fishing in Minnesota because I grew up in Minnesota, and I was imagining my buddy Pee Wee Olson fly fishing, ice fishing. We grew up on the lake, and all of us would go ice fishing. So I remember ice fishing, and I remember sitting there. What an amazing meditative experience to sit in a little hut on the ice and wait for a fish. So we can turn these moments into opportunities for practice. We notice the breath. We notice what the mind is focused on. We notice what the body is feeling. You learn to observe the mind rather than to be in it. You learn to observe the thoughts rather than to be in the thoughts. You learn to observe the sensations of the body rather than to be in them. It doesn't mean you don't feel pain. It doesn't mean you don't feel sadness. It doesn't mean you don't feel anger. It means you notice it and you consider it a form of data, a form of wisdom. It's literally an input, just like the warning lights on the dashboard of your truck. It's the input coming in saying, hey, we don't know what's wrong, but something feels scary here. We don't know what's wrong, but I think someone just screwed us over. We're supposed, the I, the deeper part, the observing self, the witness, this is where we go deeper. Is it your soul? Is it your consciousness? Is it your true self? Whatever it is observing. And if you can get in touch with it, if you can learn to be the witness of the phenomenon, of the automatic responses of the body and mind, you can start to unravel that story. Get yourself some trusted friends, get yourself a good therapist, get yourself a good shaman, whatever. Find someone that's been down that path and walked that journey, and they won't tell you what to do. They'll just sit next to you and they'll say, yeah, all right. Yep, I noticed that. What do you think about that? And they'll help you walk that path, and they'll help you unravel that story. When your body pulses in anger, your body pulses in fear. If you struggle with addiction, you're struggling with wanting something. You want. You just feel it so strong in your body. You want it. Okay, so can we notice that? Can we notice that sensation? And if we notice it long enough and we observe it long enough, and we don't do the automatic responding and the automatic judging in the mind, eventually we literally reprogram that system quite quickly. It can happen very, very fast. Why? Because we are automatically programming the brain and body in real time, all the time, by how we label our own experiences, sensations, thoughts, what have you, and by how we automatically respond in the body. And you realize who you are in this present moment is a pulse. It's a pulse based on a billion little algorithms, a billion little stories that have been told, and they're all acting out in a certain way. I've been wronged. Oh, I'm angry. It's a pulse. You feel it in your body. And I'm doing it like that because I want you to think about it. Your ego is a pulse in the moment saying, I respond this way. I think this way. This is the way the world works. This is the truth. This is what I'm attached to. This is the story I've been telling myself. I'm a good boy. I'm a good man. I work hard. So it's a pulse. And it's literally a pulse in this present moment, and you can learn to feel the pulse of anger, feel the pulse of fear, feel the pulses of this thing we call post-traumatic stress, which is fear, anxiety programmed in the body. It's an automatic response that we turn into a story, and it reminds us of the bad things we've experienced, and you have images and flashbacks, and that makes you feel angry and resentful, and you start questioning everything. I've had the absolute pleasure of getting to work with so many combat veterans who have learned to do this. I have a good friend, someone who's becoming a good friend from the 3rd Battalion, 8th Marines. I talk about those guys quite a lot. The guys from 3-8 that served in Ramadi and Fallujah 2005, 2006. So my buddy Chris recently My friend Justin Carlisle and I talk about Justin quite a bit. We helped Chris overturn his other than honorable discharge. So, what happens to so many people, so many infantry Marines especially, when you're on the front lines of war, and I'm just a civilian, so I'm not even going to start to try to describe. I've heard thousands of stories, and I've walked next to these men and women as they're unraveling these stories and learning to listen to their bodies and listen to their minds, and really to make sense of the trauma and make sense of the story and make sense of the journey, and to turn it into something more, to see all of it from a much bigger spiritual mythological picture. So our buddy Chris goes to war. He grew up in rural Kentucky, grew up tough, had a lot of rough experiences, probably didn't think much of himself, probably didn't think he was worth much. Went to the Marine Corps, became an infantry Marine, a devil dog. He served in war. According to his friends, he was a good warrior. He was someone you could rely upon. Like a lot of Marines, Chris went to the bottle or something else to cope when they were back home. Just a cultural thing. One night, Chris is out at some nightclub after 2 deployments, and someone offers him a little Coke, and he feels terrible. Keep in mind, if you want to have an automatic judgment, imagine walking around in a constant fight or flight response, full of rage, and everywhere you look, there's ungrateful people. There's people that have no idea what you just did. They have no idea what you've experienced overseas. They have no idea the kind of horrors that you've witnessed. And here you are sitting at a nightclub in Florida, overwhelmed with pain and anxiety and anger and fear, all at the same time. And someone offers you a little Coke, and Coke makes you feel good. It really does in that situation. So you take a little bit of it, and then you go back to the barracks or whatever. I can't remember where he was. I think he was at the barracks at that point. And you get a piss test and you fail the piss test, and they kick you out of the military. They give you an other than honorable discharge. They take away your right to call yourself a veteran. They take away your medical benefits. And rather than simply doing what I just did, which is, oh, you've been to war, not just war, but you've been in some really shitty war, and man, son, you must be hurting. You must be tired. Tell me about your childhood. Tell me about your service. Let's work through this. What do? They take away all the benefits, and now he spends the next 10 years of his life trying to put it all back together again. He doesn't have the medical benefits, doesn't have the support, can't even call himself a veteran. Like a lot of these guys, they find their way into one thing or another where they fit, where their skill set is welcome, where anger is encouraged. Chris almost became a Hell's Angel, at least was on the potential path to that. And eventually, through his own will and through some good friends that lifted him up and supported him and showed him love, like Justin and others that were willing to be there for him in his deepest, darkest moments. I have seen so many veterans, particularly combat veterans, who felt quite forgotten and or who purposefully separated themselves from society, and they just kind of disappeared and fell through the cracks because they didn't want anything to do with the bullshit story anymore. They've seen outside the pearly gates, and they don't want anything to do with the bullshit story we all tell ourselves anymore, and so they just kind of fell through the cracks. But somehow through all that, through falling through the cracks and finding his way into addiction and just avoidance and just more and more damage in his life and probably more shame than he knows what to do with, he found his feet again, and he got help, and he got clean, and he started running, and he kept running like Forrest Gump. He just kept going, and pretty soon he was doing ultra marathons. And all that leading up to meeting with the tribunal last winter, and Chris and myself and Justin arguing on his behalf in front of a panel. This is like a colonel and a captain and a psychologist, and basically their job is to kind of tell you what a piece of shit you are, and why you don't deserve your benefits back. Now, to be totally fair to those guys, if they ever hear this, they were totally respectful, they were professional, and they were just doing their job. Their job is to ask difficult questions and to try to make a case against the defendant. Basically, they're the prosecutor, but it's a military tribunal. So we argued on his behalf. We basically argued that war is difficult, war is tough. He was coping with war, and he was coping, and that's what led to the challenges that he was experiencing. Of course, their argument was, no. He had a problem before the military, and war had nothing to do with it, and he had a problem with addiction, therefore he should not get his benefits back. But we made a good argument, and they listened. Thankfully, they listened. And just a month or so ago, Chris got his other than honorable discharge overturned and got a general discharge. And so this young man in his mid 30s, basically, who had a baby coming on the way and went through 10 years of hell, can now call himself a veteran again. He served our country, he served in war, and now he can call himself a veteran again. And now he's got a baby. And I thought of Chris because Chris has learned and is learning to listen to his breath. He's learned to listen to the sensations of the body. He's learning to listen to the story that he's telling himself and all the pain and all the shame. Just so you all know, when you're listening to this podcast of mine here, I'm not diminishing or discounting how unbelievably difficult it is to take a step back and start listening to your breath and listening to the sensation of anger and listen to the sensation of PTSD and listen to the sensation of the voices of addiction screaming in your brain to go get a fix. I don't take it lightly. I don't discount it. I think too many people that kind of speak like me out there often don't talk about just the unreal challenge of being someone like Chris, growing up how he grew up, going to war, falling through the cracks and clawing his way back, literally clawing. The work he had to do to just keep his head afloat for those 10 years is unreal. The sheer will to keep putting one foot in front of the other. And then to have to sit there and wait and wait and wait for a couple years while you do all the paperwork and you stand in line so you can make an appeal, so you can say, please let me call myself a veteran again. Please give me those benefits that were promised to me when I signed that paper and said I would go to war for this country. Please. I did my duty. He really did. So Chris is learning how to meditate, and he's learning how to listen to his body and his mind, and he's learning how to work through his generational trauma so he doesn't have to pass it on to his little boy, his son. And I'm so proud of Chris and people like Chris. And I'm so genuinely humbled to get to walk next to them in this journey of working through pain. Chris just texted me yesterday and said he's going to a program called the Save a Warrior Project. Save a Warrior is you would call it a not-for-profit program, but it's a program that's dedicated to supporting veterans, to helping veterans heal. In my opinion, they're one of the better programs in the country. I've known several veterans that have gone to Save a Warrior. I've sent or referred some veterans to Save a Warrior. And what Save a Warrior does is they really, really help veterans learn how to listen to their breath and how to notice the sensations of the mind and the body and how to unravel the story of childhood pain and trauma that became a story and became a way of perceiving and became a way of being and living and became a life thing and acted itself out. They're really good at helping veterans unravel that story, and not just unravel that story, but to start looking at the much, much bigger picture of what does it actually mean to go from being a boy to being a man? What is the process of initiation? What is the process of making meaning out of your journey of becoming? So I'm so happy that Chris is going to be going to Save a Warrior in early October. So back to the beginning, I went on this whole tangent because I was just talking about the experience of pushing the record button. And, I'm not an experienced speaker. I'm not an experienced, I'm not an entertainer. I've never been on TV or anything like that. So the idea of hitting the record button is scary. It's fascinating. And because of modern technology and everything that's available to us, someone like me can sit down and do this and I can practice it. And I find it quite interesting that before I hit the record button, everything I've experienced in the past week or everything that's going on in the world comes into my mind, and it's like, we got to talk about this, or we should talk about this, or we should talk about that. So I want you all to know that that process for me is really important because I'm sitting there noticing all the voices in my head that we call thoughts that are really just sensations. And it's that thing we call ego, but the ego is just a pulse. It's a programmed, experienced pulse in the moment that says, hey, this is who we are. This is what Mark is. This is how Mark talks. This is what Mark says. This is what we should say. Hey, we should talk about, some current event. And I always find it really interesting and important, and I learn a lot by just practicing what I'm describing, just slowing down, noticing my mind. I realize some of you, if you're watching this, all you see is a camera. I just have a camera on me because it gives context to what I'm doing. If you're only hearing my voice, then it doesn't matter. But I'm always just kind of staring off into the distance there, and all I'm doing is literally looking at the table. And it's kind of like eyes open meditation. It's just noticing where the mind or where the sensation or where the body is taking me. And it's putting that together in some sort of coherent narrative that I hope is reasonably meaningful to some of you. Hopefully it helps you navigate your own experience. Hopefully it helps you unravel that story for yourself a little bit. And what's the goal here? The goal is to realize, I've been walking this planet learning automatically from experience, and I've been through some real shitty stuff, and I bet that shitty stuff got lodged into my body. And we can really have energetic blocks, and we can really have pain in the body that's actually, emotional pain that's been acted out over a few decades. The image I'm having in my mind that made me pause, I was just imagining, a child who is neglected or abused and learning to respond emotionally in order to keep themselves safe, and then acting out that pulse of fear and neglect and sadness and shame and abandonment over and over and over again, thousands of times, until all of a sudden you're in your 30s and your gut hurts and your chest hurts and your neck hurts and your back hurts. And why? Because you've been acting out this anger and this pain and this thing for decades, and your body's tired of it. And if any of you ever want me to expand on any of these topics, I can happily expand. I'm just following where I'm going in the moment. But if you ever want to talk about, well, okay, so I'm in physical pain and I've been acting this thing out my whole life. And you're telling me to notice my breath and slow down and listen to the sensations, and fuck you, man, that's really hard and I'm in a lot of pain. Yes, you are in a lot of pain, and I understand. Something I started doing a while back, more or less instinctively. It's not like I invented it, because something called yoga exists and dancing and things like that. But I started really moving my body. I realized that you would never tighten your body up. You would never constrict your body. You would never tighten your heart and your tummy. Rather, sorry, you would never open your body up. You would never open your throat up and your chest up and open up your mouth and your belly if you were about to get attacked by a lion. In other words, if you were under threat. And the way our brain works, whether it's a lion or whether it's a nagging boss or a nagging spouse or whatever, our brain interprets it as a lion and we react accordingly, and that makes our body really tired over time. So I learned, and I do this at the end of every day. I've learned to do it every day. I actually do it several times a day. And I'll just have fun with it. You don't need to be some guru. You don't need to, sometimes people over spiritualize some of this stuff. I turn music on and I move my body. I stretch my body. I get down on the ground and I move my body like how I would imagine a tiger moving. I open my arms up and I expose my chest and I rotate my head around. And I just move my body rhythmically. And as I'm doing it in this moment, if you're watching, I dare you to move your body in a rhythmic, loving, free, open way every night for a week and see how it makes you feel. To do that, and I know this because I've done this with people in the past week, literally sometimes most people, get a group of men in the same room, get a group of combat veterans in the room and say, all right, dudes, let's start dancing, let's start moving. And they're like, what the hell are you talking about, wizard? But you start moving the body and you realize a lot of that trauma, like Bessel van der Kolk, the great researcher that really opened a lot of people's eyes up, that trauma is really this thing in the body. It's programmed and learned in the body, and it relates to the limbic brain and all that stuff. But you start opening the body up, open the heart up, realize it's the opposite of anxiety. It's the opposite of the pain. Start loosening up. And what you're doing is you're literally telling your mind, hey, we're not uncomfortable. We're not scared. We don't need to be tense. We don't need to hold our body, and we don't need to hide in the corner. So in order to move your body like that, literally just like I'm doing in this moment, in order to loosen up this way, you have to be able to say, it's okay to do this. No, it doesn't make you an idiot. No, it doesn't make you anything stupid. No, it doesn't make you a liberal. No, it doesn't make you a hippie. It's just moving your body the way you're supposed to move it, and you're loosening it up. Why do you think people used to dance around the fire? Dance around and loosen up. Maybe get some plant medicine involved in there. Loosen up, heal the body, release the pain, release the trauma. I wanted to, you know what, I'm going to sort of taper off that for a second. Just some more grounded things I want to mention today. So I've been doing this podcast for a year now. And hi, Olivia. Do you want to come in? Did you just make something? Could I see that? Do you want to show it to everybody? Okay, Olivia just came in. Come here. It's okay. So Olivia just made a drawing. Is it okay if I show everyone?
Yes.
Okay. So Olivia started drawing when she was really young, and she's really good at it. What I love is she just kind of keeps teaching herself, and she just
look at all of those too.
She plays with it.
All of those.
Yeah, those are your drawings back there.
Can you see? Can you show them?
Everyone can see your drawings back there. Yep, they're on there.
Oh yeah.
So I noticed this has a frowny face.
It's a bad seed.
A bad seed? Did you do that from school?
She told us to draw it.
A bad seed? That's hilarious. So this, everybody, if you're wondering what a bad seed actually looks like, this is what a bad seed looks like. Okay. Do you want to close the show down with me? You want to stand here for a second?
Can I do it with you?
So what I wanted to say is this, I've been doing this podcast for a year now, and this is my 31st episode, and there's been 15 or so kind of shorter, actually about 20 shorter episodes or clips. And for any of you that have listened to this, that are listening to this, I am so grateful to you. You know, I've just been putting this out there from my heart for a year now, and I'm so grateful for your support and your help. And if this has meant something to you, if you do find use in this, if you listen to this and it helps you change a little bit, if it helps you listen to your breath, if it helps you slow down, if it's helping you through a relationship, I know that some of my clients and family and friends do listen. You know, email me, Mark, M-A-R-K, at jesart.com. Email me. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know what you'd like to explore further. You know, I've never really asked for this, but if you really find value in it, share it with a friend or two. You know, it's in my heart to keep doing this work, and it's... Yes, Olivia?
Can I do it with you?
You want to speak? What would you like to say?
I don't know.
Okay.
I want you to do it with you.
Okay. You can stay here, and let's talk together. And what I want everyone to know is that we're so grateful that we get to do this work. And the more interested they are, or the more they share this, the more Daddy can do this work, and the more I can kind of help people in a more expansive way. And I want all of you to know, part of why I started this podcast was because I wanted to reach more people than I can just reach in private practice. You know, I work with people one person at a time, but really through this podcast, I can reach people potentially by the thousands. So if you believe in what I'm doing, if you like what I'm doing, if you like what you've been hearing, go ahead and email me. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know what you want to hear more of. Share it with someone. You know, yeah, man, I'm just so grateful for all of you that have listened to this. And I'm so grateful for, you're all my family and friends and people I've gotten to walk next to through some really, really difficult things. So grateful to all of you. And being we're going into football season, Olivia, check this out. I was going through some things the other day. This is a football card, Anthony Carter, number 1981, 1986. Oh, it's up there. The 1986 Minnesota Vikings. One of my favorite wide receivers of all time, Anthony Carter. Anthony Carter was all of 5'11", 162 in 1986. He went to Michigan, born in Riviera Beach, Florida. This is sponsored by Frito-Lay. It's not. I don't want to get cut off of YouTube or something. Just reading the back of a card.
Does that card, can you go to a football game with that card?
We could bring it to a football game with this card. But see this guy here?
Uh-huh.
When he was playing football, Daddy was only like 7 years old. Or 8 when this was. Isn't that cool? All right, everybody. This is Dr. Mark Jesinoski. This is Olivia.
Olivia Joy.
Olivia Joy. And thank you all for listening over this past year. I'd love to keep it going. I'd love to do more of it. And...
Too.
Oh, Alice isn't here. So Alice is in the house. Take care, all of you. This is Dr. Mark Jesinoski. This is the Wizard Podcast. That's it. I said that twice, didn't I? What a goofball. All right, bye.